The file was on my desk when I arrived. I didn't put it there. I submitted the request at 11:47 p.m. on Tuesday. Standard retrieval form, routed through the central registry. Normal processing time is 3 to 5 business days. It was Wednesday morning, 7:14 a.m. I stood in the doorway for a moment. Then I hung up my coat. I made a note of the discrepancy in my log. Then I opened the envelope. Ruth Callow, cataloging specialist. Employed October 1969. Resigned September 1971. The file was thin. 2 pages of employment record. 1 page of internal references. 1 exit summary. Standard language. Resignation accepted. No further action required. I read it twice. There was nothing unusual. A competent employee who left after 2 years. No disciplinary record. No performance notes. The kind of file that tells you everything administrative and nothing true. The last page was not part of the personnel file. It was a separate document. Different paper weight, different typeface, different margin formatting. A medical certification issued by a licensed practitioner dated September 3rd, 1971, 14 days before her resignation. I am logging the fact that it was filed here. I am not offering an interpretation of why. Acoustic hyperesthesia. That is the term used in the certification, a condition of abnormal sensitivity to sound, specifically to the perceived presence of auditory stimuli in environments where objective measurement detects none. The document is clinical in tone. It is not dismissive. The practitioner, a licensed physician, the certification number is present, though I have not verified it, writes that the patient presents with consistent and recurring reports of articulated sound perceived during silences between spoken words in live conversation, not in recordings, not through playback equipment, in live conversation, in the pauses between words that 2 people exchange in a room. The certification recommends removal from environments of sustained auditory analysis, a reduction in working hours with tape equipment, and a follow-up consultation within 30 days. Ruth Callow resigned 14 days after this document was signed. I am reading this in a room full of tape equipment at 7:30 in the morning. I note this without comment. I want to be precise about what the document says and what it does not say. It says the patient reports hearing articulated sounds in the silences between spoken words during live conversation. It does not say she was wrong. It does not say she was right. It records the report. It recommends she stop the work that may have produced it. She did. I am logging the clinical description. I am noting that I have read it carefully and more than once. The physician's name is at the bottom of the certification. The signature is handwritten. The name is typed below it for legibility. Dr. E. Strand. I do not immediately recognize the name. I log it and move on. I set the file aside and return to the 6 unplayed reels. Standard procedure, the next one in sequence. I am not choosing based on intuition. I am working through a catalog in order, the same way I always have. The reel I selected is the 6th one, not the one marked log. That is reel 42, Ruth's audio log, which I have already played. This is one of the other 6, the one she cataloged. The the ones that have sat on that shelf since 1971 without being touched. Physical condition, good. Oxide intact. No visible splices. The flanges are yellowed, but structurally sound. The label on the hub shows what Ruth's pencil noted when she cataloged it. A date, 1962, which is consistent with the Agfa oxide, which is consistent with everything else I already know. I threaded it into the machine. I set the level. I pressed play. The voice on the tape is not Margaret Hollis. It is not Ruth Callow. It is not Dee Harrow. It is a man I have never heard before, speaking in a measured, professional tone, recording himself in what sounds like a working environment. I can hear the ambient hum of equipment in the background, the occasional mechanical click of machinery at rest. He is describing a transfer process, specifically the correct procedure for transferring acetate recordings from domestic consumer machines to professional Agfa oxide stock while preserving the original's acoustic characteristics, the playback speed calibration, the bias setting for the target machine, how to handle recordings with inconsistent original levels without introducing distortion in the copy. It is a technical monologue, instructional, the kind of recording a trained engineer makes for his own reference, or for a colleague who will follow the same procedure later. There's no name, there's no date spoken aloud. There's no indication of who he is or where he is doing this work. He speaks for 11 minutes and 40 seconds. At the 8-minute mark, he pauses. Not a breath, pause. Not a thinking pause. A deliberate stop, the kind that happens when someone reaches the end of one section of notes and is about to begin another. In that pause, 4 seconds of room tone, the equipment hum, and nothing else, he says, "The question I keep returning to is whether the transfer changes what was recorded or only what can be heard." And then he continues with the technical description. I played the pause 3 times. The first time, room tone, equipment hum, 4 seconds of nothing. The second time, the same. I adjusted the playback level upward. The hum became louder. The nothing became a slightly louder nothing. The third time, at the elevated level, with the room as quiet as I could make it, in the grain of the oxide, in the space between the end of the equipment hum and the beginning of the next frequency band.
She asked the same question.
I played it a 4th time. It was there. I want to be careful here about what I am logging and what I am not logging. The voice on the tape is the same voice I have heard in the Splice on Reel 42. Same register, same acoustic quality, same presence in the oxide. I am not uncertain about this. The phrase is, "She asked the same question." The man on the tape, the engineer, the person making the technical recording, has just said, "The question I keep returning to is whether the transfer changes what was recorded or only what can be heard." And then, in the pause before he continues, she asked the same question. The grammar of this is not neutral. It is a response. It is spoken into the silence that follows a question, and it answers that question by contextualizing it, by placing it inside a pattern. Someone else asked this, before you, in this same work, or in work adjacent to it. I am not able to determine who she refers to. I am logging the phrase and its position. I am logging that the voice responded to a question it heard on a recording made in 1962. I am not offering an interpretation. I pressed stop. The machine went quiet. The tape held its position on the spool. The pilot lights held their amber. The room was quiet. I am going to log the following event with precision, because precision is what I have. At 14 minutes and 42 seconds into my session, approximately 4 seconds after I press stop on the machine, in the silence of the room, which contained no running tape, no playback equipment, no active recording media of any kind, I heard, or believed I heard, a sound. Not a word, not clearly a word. A sound consistent with a single syllable, approximately the length and weight of a spoken syllable, occurring in the silence of the room, not from the machine. The machine was stopped. I am logging this event. I am logging that I cannot confirm it. I am noting that my hearing had been elevated in sensitivity by 40 minutes of playback analysis at increased levels, and that auditory fatigue can produce artifacts that the ear interprets as signal. I am noting this as one possible explanation. I am logging the fact. I am moving on. I went back to the certification. I read the clinical language again, slowly, this time, not looking for the facts of it, but for the shape of it. Consistent and recurring reports of articulated sound perceived during silences between spoken words in live conversation. I have been working with tape long enough to understand the phenomenology of auditory fatigue. The way a frequency you have been isolating begins to appear in places where it is not. The way a pattern the ear has been trained to find starts to find itself. These are documented, understood, professionally recognized effects of sustained analytical listening. I have also been listening to tapes long enough to know that what I heard in the silence of this room 4 minutes ago was not that. I am not making that statement as a conclusion. I am making it as a data point. One data point, unverified, which I am holding alongside the clinical description in this document and the 11 months of recording sessions that produced it. Ruth Callow heard something in the silence between spoken words during live conversation. A licensed physician documented this. A clinical term was applied to it. She was advised to stop the work. She stopped. I am noting the parallel. I am not drawing conclusions from it. I said my own name aloud, once, into the room. Martin. In the pause after it, the silence that a spoken word leaves behind it in a room. Nothing. I am logging this. I am noting that I conducted this test, that I am aware it is not a controlled condition, and that nothing is also a data point. I returned to the certification. I looked at the physician's name again. Dr. E. Strand. The name had been sitting in the back of my attention since I read it. Not because I recognized it, I don't, but because something about it had refused to settle. I checked the archive's employment records, not personnel files, the professional reference registry, the record of external contacts, consultants, and references used in the archive's institutional history. Dr. E. Strand is listed there, once, as the professional reference provided by Martin Vael on application to the National Radio Archive, my reference. The person I named when I applied for this position 11 years ago. I did not know that Dr. Strand had previously treated a staff member at this archive. I had no reason to know. He was my physician at the time of the application. I named him because he was my physician. That is the ordinary explanation. I am logging the connection. I am filing a request for Dr. Strand's full record in the institutional registry. I am moving on. The institutional registry returned Dr. Strand's record within the hour. The record is brief: his full name, his professional certification number, the date he was listed as a reference in my application file, one note in the administrative field, file closed, reason, deceased, date, May 12th, 84. I have previously logged the date May 12th, 84 from the 6th reel in this collection, where Ruth Callow inscribed it on the inside flange lip in pencil. I logged it at the time as an uninterpreted data point. I noted I did not know what it referred to. I moved on. I know what it refers to. The 5th of December, 1984 is the date I was born. Dr. E. Strand treated Ruth Callow in 1971. He documented her symptoms in clinical language and recommended she stop the work. She stopped. 13 years later, he died. On the date of my birth. His name is in my application file because I named him as a reference when I applied for this position. I did not know he had treated anyone else who had worked here. I had no reason to know. I am logging these facts in sequence. I am not drawing conclusions from their arrangement. The archive is quiet. The lamp is steady. I have 5 reels unplayed. I have a technical recording with a voice in its pause. I have a certification that describes, in medical language, something I may have heard in the silence of this room tonight. I am going to let the recorder run. The question the engineer asked in 1962 was whether the transfer changes what was recorded or only what can be heard. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure it matters which.